Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows, only time? And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows, only time?
Good morning. Welcome back to History Class, where we have been talking about the civilization that grew up in Mexico, North Mexico, called the Aztecs. Now, the Aztecs, they settled there in the north of Mexico around the year 1200, and probably never heard of them. But what would you say if I told you that some of the words that you use today are Aztec words? You say, Mr. Matt, I don't speak Aztec. Well, first of all, their language wasn't called Aztec. Their language was called Nahuatl. But yes, you do speak some Aztec words. Would you like me to prove it to you? I will do that. What's this? That is, well, in Spanish, it's an aguacate. In English, it's an avocado. They sound very similar, but the name for that comes from the Aztecs, from Nahuatl. They would have pronounced it aguacatl, probably, but aguacate or avocado, that is an Aztec word. And what's something you can make out of an avocado? How about this? Guacamole. I love guacamole. Miss Susan makes some really good guacamole. But guacamole is also an Aztec word. You didn't know that, did you? Yes, they were really big. Avocados were really big in that area. And guacamole was one of the things that they made out of it. And here's something else that you might put in your guacamole. A tomato. Well, that comes from the Aztecs as well. Yes, it does. Tomatoes grew up. A lot of people think they grew up in Europe. They didn't. They grew up in this area of the world. Yes, they were really big with the Aztecs. How about this? That's an easy one, isn't it? Chocolate. Chocolate. That's an Aztec word too. And what is chocolate made of? Do you know? It's made of this. It's called cacao or coca, depending on who you talk to. And that's also the Aztec word. The Aztecs loved their cocoa. They loved their cacao. They would take these beans and they would grind them down. They would make hot chocolate out of them. They would even use them for money. Yes, this is what they used for money. They didn't have this stuff to print out coins or bills, so they used this. So for the Aztecs, money did really grow on trees. You would give you could give this cacao beans, this chocolate, to a friend. If you wanted to marry somebody, you would give it to them to show them that you really loved them. But yes, chocolate was what the Aztecs used for money. How about this? That's a pepper, obviously. What kind of pepper is it? It is a chili. A chili pepper. Well, the Aztecs, the word for that comes from the Aztec word, the chili. I mentioned that the Aztecs drank hot chocolate. They would put some of these chili peppers into their hot chocolate for flavor. How about this? You know what that is? Yes, it is a dog, but what kind of dog? No, it's not a wolf. That is a coyote. A coyote. And guess what? That's also an Aztec word. You didn't know that you knew so many Aztec words, did you? Yes, now you do. You know a lot of Aztec words, so now you can tell your friends that you speak 3 languages. You speak English, American, and Aztec. Good for you. The Aztec culture was very rich. They had a whole lot of stuff going on, and if I was to sit here and talk to you about it, we would be here the rest of the day, but we don't have that kind of time. So real quick, I'll tell you the thing that the Aztecs are most well known for, and that was the worship of their gods. To that end, they built these huge stone temples, and on those temples, they made sacrifices. They would bring their sacrifices up all those stairs, and then they would kill their sacrifices and offer them up to their gods. And you might be saying, Mr. Matt, how can you get an animal all the way up those stairs? Their sacrifices didn't have 4 legs. They had 2 legs. They were humans. The Aztecs sacrificed humans to their gods. There would be a whole ceremony where they bring somebody up. They would stretch them out on like a stone table. 2 priests would come up. One would grab his legs, the other would grab his arms, and then the high priest would come up with a knife, and he would cut the sacrifice's heart out and pull it out of his chest, still beating. The guy was still alive while this was happening to him. The Aztecs were a very bloody religion, but they believed they needed to sacrifice to keep the sun coming up, to keep the seasons happening, to keep the rain coming, to grow the crops. They worshiped the sun and the earth and all these things. So they would sacrifice people to their gods. It's a terrible, terrible thing. But they didn't know about the one true God, which was too bad. And who knows how many thousands of people were sacrificed to the gods of the Aztecs, for the Aztecs over the years. Nobody knows. But it was a very bloody culture. Okay, all right. I could talk. Like I said, I could talk for the Aztecs in a very rich culture. I could talk for hours about the sort of stuff that they did, but we don't have that time. We only have 3 days to talk about them, and tomorrow we need to talk about what happened to the Aztecs, why they're no longer around. So we'll just go ahead and stop here, and let's go over questions for today. Question number 1, name some Aztec words. I gave you a whole bunch at the beginning of this video. You can write down at least one. I want you to write down at least one, but you can write down as many as you want after that. Okay? So, if you want some Aztec words, go watch the beginning of this video again. Write some of them down. Question number 2, what did they use for money? They used cocoa beans, stuff you use to make chocolate out of. And question number 3, how did they worship their gods? They worshiped their gods through human sacrifice, killing people, and to make their gods happy. It's a really nasty way to go, but that's the way that they did things back then. Okay. All right, so that's all we have for today. On Thursday, we will talk about what happened to the Aztecs, what happened to them when the Spanish came. So come back for that. All right, thank you very much. That's all we have for today. I will see you on Thursday.